So we're here in the first of this next series of podcasts, and the idea of this is to have a bit of an informal discussion about a topic for the week, answer some of the questions of our community, and really, discuss some interesting kind of paddle events or stuff happening around the world.
Yeah, I think, we've sort of underplayed the fact that we're in the middle of the Avicii arena, ready for the World Padel Tour finals.
Just a casual just
another
down.
podcast.
Yeah, exactly. All our podcasts are going to be from World Padel Tour, player bench. No, I wish.
It's going to be difficult to top this one.
Yeah,
I think.
I know. But start with a bang.
Casual. Yeah, we're just here. Here we are.
We're just relaxing in the Avicii arena just before the finals are about to start.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been a great week, really, actually, hasn't it? Because we're in Stockholm, and it's the first time for me for paddle. I've been ages ago for tennis, and I think same for you, right?
Same, yeah.
And obviously, Stockholm and Sweden is the home of paddle outside Spain, and we've seen everything there is to see. Well, not everything there is to see, but we've done some Slazenger clinics. We've been to the Expo and seen the first of that kind, and then here in the World Padel Tour in one of the most impressive stadiums for the World Padel Tour.
Yeah, just as well, for me, the community that Sweden has, the paddle community, especially for the paddle school, people are so passionate about paddle. It's so great to actually meet the community, because obviously we're doing a lot of stuff online. Yeah. So to actually meet people in person and
and I think the Nordics and the Swedes are one of my favourite kind of audiences. They were following the paddle school from the beginning. They've always been our largest community. We can see through our analytics, how supportive they are, and it's the same when we come in person as well. They're very vocal about the paddle. We saw this yesterday with the semi-finals. They get really stuck into the matches, and it's been the same at all our events. The clinics we've done on court, they've given 110% each time, and same with the Expo. I mean, fantastic, wasn't it, to see all the people there? Yeah,
they love their paddle. They love it. You can see why, like you say, it's the home of paddle outside Spain. They just, I think looking forward to other countries, getting the paddle bug just like the Swedes have. Yeah,
and I mean, if we look at the events that we've done this week, we did the Slazenger clinics with the ambassadors, and we did that in the LADAP, the new kind of arena, I was going to call it. It's a club essentially. Yeah. I mean, it's so big it is an arena.
Feels like an arena.
Yeah, and that was great, and we worked. The ambassadors came from all parts of Sweden to take part, and what a great group! Really enjoyed that time. And then we spent some time at the Expo. We did our community clinic where people could come and get involved, win some prizes, which was great fun, high energy. And also it was nice wandering around, wasn't it? Like speaking to all the different brands and the different softwares and clubs that people are getting involved.
Yeah, there's a big excitement, isn't there, for paddle, and you can see that with all these different smaller brands really, but brands that look really good, but smaller ones that are trying to kind of get into the market, and I think that's just great. It's good for paddle, isn't it, in general, to see all these brands trying to build a brand.
And then yesterday and today we'll be here again for World Padel Tour, the Swedish Padel Open, and I mean, it's just an incredible arena, isn't it? It's fantastic. We've just hit on the court, and it's a huge echo because there's no one here, and they very kindly let us in a bit earlier because we said we wanted to do a bit of filming, and they were very open to that. But yesterday it filled out. I was quite impressed. It did fill out for the semi-finals, and it was a really kind of loud, engaging atmosphere, wasn't it, from the crowd? Oh
yeah, the atmosphere was awesome. I loved it, and today's final is going to be. I think it's going to be really good.
I think they've just the Swedes have had paddle long enough that they just so appreciate this level. Yeah. Like the level being played yesterday was phenomenal, and again it will be the same today, and it's just great. It's great to see lots of familiar faces, but lots of people also come into this because they know that Sweden has been a hub for paddle, and and the clubs we go to, we kind of feel the same. I mean, it's difficult because the clubs we've gone to this week with the Expo and the World Padel Tour on, I think we haven't seen as many people at the clubs as we might normally. Yeah. The clubs are impressive. You got LADAP, we went to Ultimate Paddle, we've been to Padel Royale, and so they probably weren't as busy as when I was last here, well, not here in Stockholm, but in Sweden, in Gothenburg or Helsingborg, 2 or 3 years ago, it felt busier. And obviously this was your first time here as well. What were your thoughts on the club?
Yeah, I mean, it's my first time seeing Swedish paddle clubs like I've seen, and I was, to be fair, really, really impressed. Like the facilities are, sort of beyond what I thought they would be. When I think of, for example, back in the UK, obviously paddle's a lot smaller, but it just doesn't compare. Like Ladap, Stockholm, it was, like you say, perhaps not as many people as we thought would be playing there. But the facilities themselves, I thought were really, really good. I was really impressed. Yeah,
and it's interesting because we speak to the club owners, the players, the coaches, and right now, I mean, for the previous few years, paddle in Sweden has just been, a massive upward curve, and now it's reached a point where there's probably saturation, and the demand has kind of equaled supply, and I think some of the clubs are struggling, and I feel there's a level of uncertainty from clubs, clubs, retailers, coaches. They're all, they're not sure what's going to happen. A lot of the people we've spoken to have said that, we're coming up to 4,000 courts, and they think that it's going to go down now. They're taking courts out just because their growth was almost too fast for them to be prepared for it. Really, wasn't it? And you can see that. You can see that in the clubs, that the occupancy has not, even with these events going on, at times that I thought would be at least half full or more, they were empty. It's going to be interesting to see how it levels out, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, like you said, that the clubs perhaps weren't as busy as we thought, but I still feel like the passion for paddle is still there when we do interact with paddle players, right, in Sweden. Like, they're still, it's not like they might have reached a saturation, but it's not like, paddle is a fad and people aren't enjoying it anymore. There's still that passion. I just think, perhaps, like you say, the growth has been probably ahead of awareness. Do you think, in terms of?
I think ahead of awareness, but I think ahead of the kind of infrastructure that is required, I think, for a sport or for a governing body, and particularly with coaches, and it's almost grown so fast that clubs have been, throwing up around the country, and they've thought, right, we just need a coach, and they've gone to an intermediate or a decent player and said, hey, could you start coaching? And they might not have any coaching background or any experience in that regard. And the difficulty is that they were still getting lessons and they were still being busy, even though they probably were not confident in what they were doing. And even speaking to coaches, they're crying out for a bit more education, I think, and a bit more structure in their training. And the players now are knowledgeable enough and experienced enough in paddle that's also what they're looking for. And I think that happened, the growth of paddle happened ahead of that infrastructure for coaches and academies and junior academies and things like that. And now I think that's probably a correction that needs to happen, for players to get back in. And we've been here with, a group of Swedish players this week, and, recreational players, and we've said, look, why are you not, why don't you have lessons? And they're like, well, it's so difficult to find an experienced trainer. They're either very expensive or they're unavailable. So instead of joining a group with an inexperienced player, I'm just not going to have lessons at all.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see that, but at the same time, it's not the club's fault, it's not the coach's fault. It's like, that structure just, it needs to be there, really.
But I think that ability for players to continue playing the sport without necessarily needing lessons is almost why people love the game when they first pick up a racket, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because it's easy to learn, so they can improve just by playing. But at the same time, they're going to reach a point where they haven't had technical work, and so they'll plateau, and then they reach that level of frustration. And I really, this is the tipping point that, I really hope they stay in the sport, and don't give it up for something else. And that's really where, we as coaches or us as coach educators need to step up and be like, right, we can take that journey from here. Yes, we would rather take the journey from the beginning. We would rather have a player at the beginning and like a blank canvas and shape their game in the way we would want to, but we also appreciate that, they want to play the game socially and learn it as a hobby first. So, I mean, that's kind of where we want to come in as well, isn't it, really, to help them on that journey.
Yeah, support players and coaches. I think interesting you're saying about, the infrastructure. Obviously loads of countries emerging now with paddle, and they're kind of looking to Sweden, aren't they, as a kind of, that's the first mover, or, whatever you want to call it. What do you think of the sort of lessons? Because I know a lot of people are looking at Sweden going, okay, let's see what they've done. How would we do it or change it? What do you think?
It's interesting talking to, club owners or potential investors or club builders that are Swedes doing it in other countries, because I think they're good people to look at because they've seen what's happened in Sweden. They're going to build, clubs in other countries. And we've had those conversations a few times, in the last couple of days. And the first thing that they're doing is they're saying, right, we're going to build a club, but we need to do something different from the beginning. Not just throw up courts and put in a little shop and hope it runs. They're like, right, we need, a unique and quality academy. We need, a kind of good retail space and even food and beverage. And I find those areas in Swedish clubs, we just don't see them often. And the examples, like, I think one of my favourite clubs in this visit has been Ultimate Padel. Like, I loved it. I mean, walking in, you got the courts everywhere, love the seating, love the setup for the club, and there'll only be, a coffee machine. And you think there's enough retail space here for like a big restaurant, and I'm not saying that, and I know there's probably some restrictions within food and beverage licensing, and I'm not saying it's as easy to just throw that in there, but in other countries, I think now those investors, those club owners, that is a huge consideration, or it has to be, really, doesn't it? Yeah,
it's the experience around the paddle as well, right? I think, perhaps, people might have thought, people love the sport so much, you throw up the courts, and, that's where, a club should focus on, is just the court stuff. But, the experience off the court, like Ultimate Padel for me as well was, you walk in and it's, you have a bit of like, wow, you kind of see the whole club. Yeah, for me, it was my favourite as well. But I agree. I think it's getting that balance right. I think between, like you say, is it not necessarily a full-on restaurant, but it's something that perhaps, has a bit of an experience outside of the court that keeps people in and kind of builds that, a bit like we're trying to do, builds a community, right, for that club.
And I think also, on that, we're talking food and beverage there, but almost the same on the academy and program side, really, is, and this is where it's going to be a very difficult job in Sweden to correct this path. But for countries that are getting into the sport, new countries, they can set up a good academy from the start, and really it's, things like ladies' clinics in the morning, or coffee mornings, or afternoon socials and activities within, for juniors, and all this type of stuff is like, really, really paramount to a good club community. And I think if they can do it from the start, it's easy to carry on, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a blank slate for a lot of clubs, isn't it, as well? It's when you've got a brand new sport like this, there's that kind of, you could do everything, and I think sometimes you can perhaps, that you need that creative side, I think, to kind of think what could you do differently to other clubs? Like you said, now clubs are thinking that, but I think before it's just been pop the courts up. Perhaps looking at other sports, maybe like tennis clubs, or looking at other sports that you could kind of mirror. But I think with paddle, it's a really open space. You can be creative, and I think you will see a lot of clubs actually being, perhaps doing other activity, have other activities in a paddle club. Why not? Not just a paddle club.
Definitely, and you watch the growth of something like pickleball, and you see the variety and the type of activities they do. Why not? Like, it's like you say, it's a blank slate, and they can really be creative.
Yeah.
So as part of the podcast as well, we want to have a theme for the week, and the theme this week will almost be tied a little bit into our videos, and it's convenient, really, because the clinics we've given this week have been a lot of Swedish players hitting really, really fast and rushing the net like we've both done when we started, and so
I think the amount of times I heard, take your time, slow down. You don't need to rush. It's Yeah, I heard that being said quite a lot this week.
And I feel like it's a bit unfair to say it's the Swedes, because everyone is doing it. The UK, it's exactly the same. You know, we've been to Finland, the other country, the tennis strong countries. It's been the same. So, you know, that idea of slowing the ball down, not rushing. You know, if you've come from tennis, learning the tennis, you know, tennis to paddle lob, that was, you know, going to be our video this week, and that's really, you know, it's a really difficult instinct to get out of, isn't it? I mean, you've played really high competitive level of tennis, we both have, and removing those instincts of attack, you know, and trying to finish the point is so difficult.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's an instinct, it's a mindset, which actually, you know, I think players know that, don't they? You know, you say to them, slow down, they go, yes, yeah, you know, it's not like they don't know they shouldn't be doing that, but it's, it really is a mindset shift, which it takes time and practice, doesn't it? And you know, it does come, but it's, you know, it is takes time.
It's specific practice, isn't it? Lobs, chiquitas, slowing that ball down and almost forcing yourself not to finish straight away. Enjoy the points going on a little bit longer, so that, you know, you can get and actually it helps your tactical, you know, side of learning the game, because you start to work out what shots you know, become difficult or frustrating for your opponent, or how you can play, how you can slow that ball down. And it's really important, I think, particularly from tennis, to learn that quite early on. You know, otherwise, you know, you get into a rhythm here, and it's very difficult, because if you're 4, you know, friends, tennis players learning the game, and all 4 of you are hitting hard, and you're the only one trying to slow down, it's really difficult to do that. So, you know, it's almost a mindset that the community needs to take up, and this is where these community training sessions and clinics going in, and we've done clinics before where we said, right, we're going to play half an hour of points or 20 minutes of points, no aggressive shots. We're just going to play with control, lobs, and and it then becomes a bit more Padel-esque, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's like you say, it's an instinct as well. You know, you could train. It just takes time. You know, you can do a session where you practice slowing it down, and everyone's playing, you know, kind of, you know, at a better pace, and then suddenly we say, right, let's play some points again, and then it's bang bang, everyone's playing fast, and but I think over time, and like you say, when players start to understand the tactical side of things, they actually, you know, instead of just being told slow it down, they start to understand, oh, okay, actually I'm going to, you know, win more points if I do this. And
you see that light bulb go off, don't you? And then and they come off the court at the end and they go, oh, I really enjoyed that. I see now why we do that, you know.
And it saves energy, right?
And I think a big thing is the why. Like, and this is, you know, we're going back to kind of coaches and coach education, is the why. Like, you know, if you're a player and your coach is telling you to do something on court, like, you must understand why. And if it's not obvious, then you must ask your coach why. And the coach should be explaining why anyway, you know. And once you understand why, you can then start putting it into your game and start improving your paddle.
Yeah. And what I mean, the lob from tennis to paddle as well, I think is, again, actually, you know, it's a different kind of technical, you know, kind of skill, but I think it's still a mindset shift, isn't it? At least that I find, you know, that also the number of lobs you need to hit. You know, in tennis, you know, one or two a match, probably max.
Well, we're seeing this on the court here, aren't we? I mean, you know, the 20, 30 lobs in some of these rallies, and you know, and you can see why it's very difficult to do a lot with that ball if they're comfortable defending at the back. Yeah,
it's interesting actually. The kind of the net rushing and that lob tennis to paddle, I feel like they're kind of like related. You know, like a lot of players, especially that come to paddle, are not used to the back and forth of, you know, come to net, lob, build the point again, come back to net. They almost feel like, especially the people that I've coached, it's, you know, when they've, you know, shifted and transitioned a couple of times, they feel really uncomfortable doing that. They sort of think, oh, you know, is this right? Because they're so used to in tennis coming forward, and that's it.
Yeah. And we'll put both those videos, the net rusher and the lob tennis to paddle, down below in the description for YouTube, because we're going to do this as a YouTube content, but also as a podcast. So we'll put it in the show notes as well. And we really want to try and finish these podcasts with some of our community questions. So on our online community, you know, they've posted a couple of questions, and I think let's address them, you know, at the end of each of these podcasts. So have you got?
I've got some questions here. I'll ask you. Shall I fire away?
Yeah, go for it.
So the first question is: should I spend months learning the basics of playing before entering a tournament, or should I just enter and get playing?
That's good, isn't it? I mean, I suppose it depends. You know, your level of previous competition in other sports, and probably your confidence, and you know, if you enjoy competing, really, you know, if you enjoy competing and you've competed in different sports before and you feel confident, I say why not? Like, you know, enter. It's a great way to learn about the game. You know, if you're someone that is a little bit more almost nervous about competition and you're worried about your performance, you feel a little bit of pressure. There's no pressure.
Yeah.
There's no pressure to go and compete. You know, you can get a little bit more comfortable on the court first. I think that's a very kind of personal thing. If you like to compete and you enjoy it, go for it.
Yeah.
If not, that's absolutely fine as well. Like, you know, everyone will have their different journey. So that's.
I know for me, I love to compete. So I would say my biggest lesson. I'm interested to hear your thoughts as well. But the biggest lessons that I learn, I feel like the biggest improvement I have is when I play matches. And I don't know what, you know, it might just be the competition, it might be, but I feel like I always come away from a match kind of clear on, especially if you lose them. I think
interesting for you is it, like, because obviously I coach you in tennis, so and now you know, at the beginning of your paddle I coached you in paddle as well, and I think you're a bit of a perfectionist by nature. So you enjoyed competing at the beginning, and you came away really frustrated. And then you knew what you wanted to train on. You're like, right, we're going to train now before I play this next tournament. I don't want to embarrass myself. So, you know, that's what we're going for.
Turn that frustration into now what's got to improve.
And I think that's a good mentality to have. And I was kind of the same. I actually was in Dubai. I wished I had more competition, but. That was it really. Wherever you're learning the sport, you're going to have certain competitions you can enter. I think that would be my suggestion for that.
I've been struggling a lot with my nerves when I play. I end up not focusing on winning, and instead I focus on not letting my partner down. Do you have any tips?
For me, this goes back to communication. Like, you know, have that conversation with your partner. Like, often players, you know, are so kind of conscious of, you know, letting their partner down or letting themselves down. They put pressure on themselves, and really their partner might be feeling exactly the same thing. So, you know, and for me, I always say this: communication starts before you even go on the court. You know, have that conversation, like sit down with a coffee with them before and just chat and get to, you know, if they're a new partner, get to know them. And if they're a regular partner, just see how they're doing on that day and have that communication. But if you've got a long-term partner and you're feeling that pressure from your partner, then either you need to have a kind of serious conversation with your partner or potentially try and find someone else to play with, because you won't play your best if you're feeling the pressure and you're feeling nerves. You want your partner to give you confidence. So I think, first of all, communication. Talk to your partner about it. They might be in the same boat, and even just to have that conversation might relax you both, and therefore you'll play some of your best paddle.
Yeah, I think sometimes as well, if you feel like your partner's getting frustrated, you sort of automatically assume, oh, it's because of me, you know, or you lose a point and your partner gets frustrated. But actually, you know, probably a lot of the time they're just sort of frustrated with themselves, and you almost start building up this idea that, you know, it's you. And I think, just being kind of open communication with each other.
And most of the time, you're both there to enjoy it, right? Like, so it's not, you know, they're not playing the World Paddle Tour final. We're not having this, you know, this conversation with Paquito and Martin Deneno at the
Well, not yet.
No, really not. But I mean, that's what I would say for that. And I mean, that kind of concludes our first podcast in this new series. I enjoyed it.
Where are we going to be next? That's the question.
Who knows? But let us know. We're going to put this on the YouTube channel. So on the YouTube channel, let us know down in the comments if you like this type of content. And if you're listening to it on the podcast, don't forget to, you know, subscribe. And hopefully we'll see you on the next one.